Hey everybody, it's Monster back in with Opus Gaming, and I'm here today to bring you guys my Hunter's deck profile. I'm super excited to bring this deck to you guys. It's something I've been piloting ever since BT12 came out, and something I've been enjoying playing, tinkering with, and just constantly building more and more as time goes on, and just playing it a lot with my friends. I think that the Hunter's deck is one of the best decks that BT12 introduced, and I think that when you bring in the Rivals engine, this is going to be a pretty unique Rivals slash Hunter's deck, but when you bring in the Rivals engine, I think that that's what makes Hunter's the best that it can be, is when you're combining the two engines and kind of finding a good balancing act. So that's something that we'll dive in. I've gotten a couple first place with this deck, so it's just been really great piloting it, building it, like I've said before. But before we do a deep dive into the deck profile, talk about how I bring the two playstyles, the two archetypes together, and talk about my list. If you guys aren't subbed, drop a sub down below. We're on our way to our first 1,000 subscribers, and once we cross 1,000 subscribers, we're gonna be doing a really big giveaway, and I've got the details to the giveaway in a video link down below. But if you guys are just here to just to support, leave a like, leave a comment. I really appreciate it. It just helps us get on the algorithm. But let's get into the deck profile and talk about Hunters. I'm super excited for this. All right, let's get into the deck profile. We're actually going to be starting off with our eggs, but with the eggs, we're going to be starting off with 5 today. This is the first time we've done 5 eggs in a really long time. We're going to talk about why. Beelzemon is a card that I really feel like you shouldn't omit from your list, just because this card actually really helps on the recuperation of resources. So a lot of times in the earlier mid game, when you're just tagging cards under a U to gain extra memory, if that's the only tamer that you have, you're losing those cards from your hand. Not losing them because you still have access to them, right? But Beelzemon is a card that just really helps mitigate the cost of fueling your tamers when you're really going in on getting your tamer set up in the early game. So I really actually like just Beelzemon for the mid game, late game, and just kind of going for having longer legs, right? When I'm doing more than just swinging out my cards into my opponent's security and dying. And then after that, we have Monimon. This is the much more seen egg, and this card is just a really good on deletion draw one card. In the early game, this really gets your cycle going, which is nice. But this card, it does kind of fall off into the late game, because if you're sitting one of these under like an Aristramon, it is nice when your Aristramon does die, but your things like that don't die too frequently, so you really don't get the on deletion on that too often. But let's get into the rookies here, because we are playing quite a few. We'll start off with the first two 4-ofs, which is Psychmon and Gumdramon. Gumdramon is really nice. They're both actually really fantastic. Honestly, once you start playing the deck more, I really liked Gumdramon straight away, just because you could get the draw one while setting up your Digivolution, which is super nice. But having played more, having the Psychmon come in the late game and circle you back some of your resource from under a tamer, especially some of the resource that you get for free, is actually fantastic. So it's just something that you'll see. So it's gonna be 4 of both of those, and those are definitely gonna be like two of your better rookies. I just want to make sure I have these all in frame for, yeah, that looks good. We should be able to do it like that. So we'll go down today. So we'll set up those for the rookies, and then after that, for inheritables, we're going to talk about the Chumon. Chuchumon. I really like Chuchumon because on deletion it already has save. It has a higher play cost than Digicrossing with those first 2 rookies that we showed, but this card giving blocker is actually really nice. Spoiler alert, for some of the Hunters package, we are playing very few of the Damimon, just because we are playing a large number of tamers, but like missing on a Damimon is not a fun time. I really like knowing my plays and knowing how I'm going to set up. So I needed another inheritable blocker for those turns when we end on a Quartzmon and we trying to lock our opponent out of the game. So that's where Chuchumon came in. Having save makes it really reliable, and I actually don't regret putting it in at all. And next up, for the last 2 cards, we're splitting the last couple slots with 2 Drachmon and 2 Akakimon. So the Kakimon is really nice because it does have save in its text for the rest of your Digivolutions, but it gives you access to DP reduction, which is nice. Sometimes you need to move things into a smaller threshold. Sometimes you need to force like Greymons to trade with you by reducing their DP and pumping your DP. And it just comes in a lot of situations. Really, at the end of the day, with this deck, you do want some versatility in your plays, and you do want some options in the lines of play that you're forced to go down. So I do like a Kakimon for that. So that's the reason that it has a slot. And then Drachmon being a really good just Digimon rookie with Digicross, being able to play this for 2 on top of your other play for 2 Psychmon and Gumdramon is nice. Having plus 2k for the DP is also really nice, but being able to cycle extra tamers out of your hand for draws comes up in the mid game quite often. So actually playing these has saved me quite often. Sometimes I feel like I don't have enough extra tamers to utilize the extra copies of this. That's why it's only at 2. But with the rookie slot, that is one of the slots that you can honestly really kind of tailor to your liking. So this is just where I'm at for rookies. Getting into the level 4s, we're going to start off with the card that kind of bridges all the archetypes together before we get into the specific archetypes. So we have 2 of Clockmon. This card is fantastic. I just love it for its inheritable. Giving something jamming is actually really important because a lot of times you're going to be digivolving, and the Digimon that you're swinging with, if it can't save its inheritables or its Digimon in its stack, it's actually really, really vulnerable for you to be swinging with that Digimon and not having full control of the board. So putting something like a Clockmon in really helps you retain your board presence. So Clockmon's been fantastic. Obviously, it's a good searcher as well. So it just kind of fulfills both of those slots. And next we have Aristomon. This is going to be your rush attacker, and this is the card that combos with your 2-drop rookies really well. So there's a lot of times if you're starting on 3, you'll play out a 2-drop rookie Drakmon, for example, Digivolve into the Aristomon, and then tap down your Tamers to make the Aristomon free. But now Aristomon will gain Rush, and you'll be able to swing with that stack right away. So it's your way to kind of like just slap out a body and go for game. But Aristomon has been, obviously, it's a really good card. It bridges the 2 level 5 stacks together because they can both Digivolve over a purple level 4, as well as it gives you a consistent way to go for game. As well as all the purple Digimon in this list have inheritable to draw on when you're attacking as a save Digimon. So that's just an added bonus, but not to rant on about how much I like Aristomon. Getting into the first bit of the package, we're going to talk about the first 4 of, which is the Hunters. 4 of the Hunters, I feel like playing 12 level 4s is a pretty consistent number to hit when you're building other decks, and it's been very consistent for me in this list. So it's going to be 12 level 4s with the 2 Clockmon that don't really Digivolve. And the first set of Hunter cards is going to be the 3 Shoutmon King version that basically play one of their archetype Tamers from hand, and then the 1 Damemon that plays one of its archetype Tamers from the top 3 search from the deck. Damemon is nice when you hit, but you don't always hit, and that's just kind of the end all be all for why it's only at 1. Sometimes you like to gamble for it. The inheritable is fantastic, but at the end of the day, a lot of times you're just going for the more consistent when you know you have it in hand and playing it out with Shoutmon King version. Both of these inheritables are pretty handy, but neither of them really break the deck or anything. They just are very useful inheritables to kind of bring in, and a lot of times it's just setting these up because they have the on deletion to save themselves, plus 1 other card from your trash underneath one of your Tamers. And we'll talk about some of the combos that you can do with that a little bit later, because there are some pretty cool things that you can utilize that for. So I almost missed that one, sorry. And then we'll just slot the Damemon next to it. So I just want to make sure everything's still in frame for you guys. All right, getting into the next the next level 4 slot. It's going to be Yasimon and Opossumon. These are the rival cards, and these are the ones that will play out your rival Tamers in the exact same way that these ones will play out your Hunter Tamers. So they're really good level 4s that have the on deletion to continue to build underneath your Tamers, but helping bring out your additional Tamers and those additional effects with these are really, really nice, especially when you're getting, even in the start of the game, really, you can start off with any of your Tamers. These really, really help to fill out your board, and we'll talk about some of the Tamers and what they do when we get to the Tamer side. Getting into the level 5s, though, these are some of my favorite slots. We'll talk about Omni Shoutmon first. Omni Shoutmon is just the generic one that can go over any level 4, including Clockmon, which is a really big deal because his effect is kind of fulfilled by the amount of Tamers that you have on board. So having access to Omni Shout is honestly just another piece in the toolbox that comes in and is really consistent and really nice to have. Talking about the Ostamon, this card combos really well with the Quartzmon combo. This card coming in as a 1-of is actually nice because you can Digivolve it over your Aristomon, but you do have a small package of level 4s to hit as well. He also Digivolves over Psychmon. So you're really not feeling like you're ever kind of running short on Digimon to Digivolve over for Ostamon. And finding him is actually pretty easy. If you end up losing him, you have a couple ways to get him back. And this deck does have a really big draw engine. So sometimes in the mid game, you're drawing like 4 or 5 cards per turn. So finding the cards that you need at the right time usually isn't too bad of an issue. So playing this at 1 is fine. If anybody does want to bump this up and play it as a 2-of, I don't blame you whatsoever. I don't know necessarily what I would drop. But if it's something that you feel like you need as a second Ostamon, definitely feel free to tech that in, especially if you have a lot of Hunters in your meta. So I want to move these up just a little bit so they're all looking the same. All right, let's talk about Superior Mode, or Aristomon Superior Mode. This Superior Mode, this is the best card in the deck in my opinion. Being able to attack while rested, as well as being able to attack while you have a lockdown Quartzmon field, just gives you another just avenue to play, right? It's just such a unique playstyle and something that your opponent has to deal with, and not a lot of decks can deal with it. This card can come out if you're playing against a Greymon deck. This guy comes out and just hits their Greymon right away, right? They can't really play out a second Digimon or play out a Tamer, so a lot of those oppressive board states that Greymon that we're used to playing in Greymon, they're either not able to play or they're playing and they're just being like, if you have an Aristomon, you just win, and then you have the Aristomon and you just win. So it's really, really nice versus like Greymon and those types of matchups. But this card is crazy consistent. It's fantastic and inheritable. If you get it in the early game, you feel free to just slot it under a Tamer, because when you give it to a Digimon, you're going to be drawing, hopefully drawing into another copy of itself. So fantastic card. It floats into itself really nicely, and it's just a mainstay of the deck, and it's one of the biggest cornerstones for sure. Quartzmon is a card that came in as a meta call. This card is fantastic, and I actually think this card is pretty impactful in the meta. We haven't tested it too crazy outside of the meta, but it's, as you guys know, if you guys haven't seen some of my other videos, this one's on like Quartz, or this one's on Grandis. A lot of people are playing this on like Hydra, Bloomlord, and all those kinds of packages, and I think that this card is super crazy. Comes down, locks down the board, and even though it is hittable by removal, the removal usually costs a lot for your opponent to drop, and when it slows the board state down so much, because it's not like they can unsuspend their Tamers or Digimon on that turn, and then it goes back into your turn, you're able to unsuspend everything. That's the kind of momentum that we want to utilize. So it's not always about just like locking down this crazy board, trashing 5 security, pushing for game or anything like that. Sometimes it truly is just making your opponent pause in the game so that they can't continue to just like ram forward, and then you are just going super hard while they're trying to figure a way out. So Quartzmon comes down and locks down the board and locks down the game for you super, super well, and I love this card. Just kind of talking about what it can go on top of. It can go on top of any of your level 5s for 9, but it combos really well with the Ostamon to Digivolve for 6. So it's just like Digivolving on a level 6, so any mega. All right, let's talk about the Tamers and talk about how we bring the archetypes together. We're going to go over the Watchmaker first, just like we talked about the Quartzmon or the Clockmon first for the level 4s. Watchmaker is a fantastic card. It's going to help with consistency, help you find 2 different Digimon, or 1 Digimon with save, and then a Digimon with, or a card with Hunter in its trait. So it finds you a Tamer and a Digimon. Super nice. The Clockmon only finds you 2 Digimon, which sometimes can be really, really frustrating. But the Watchmaker kind of makes it nice. It gives you Sec +1. The only reason that we're not playing just more copies of it is because we have a pretty important utility package in our Tamer lineup. So playing one of this as our aggression piece has actually been very consistent for us. So let's go like right about there. For the Hunters, we'll talk about these 2 first. Taiguru and Yu, as well as the other 3 of Taiki. These are kind of the staple ones, right? You see a lot of people playing these. These ratios are a little bit interesting. A lot of people are on 4 Taiki, 3 Yu, 3 Taiguru. And the reason that we're playing these ratios is just really a kind of concept that I was coming up with when building the deck. And this is really, since we have so many packages to put in one deck, it's about playing the correct amount of cards, in my opinion. So even though having 3 of the Memory Tamer is really, really nice, and having 4 of the Taikis nice, having 3 of the Yu is really nice, I'm playing the amount that I think that I'll see consistently to pair with their level 4s as well as other cards. And to consistently see in my deck, so I can have the cards these cards that I need at the right situation, while not oversaturating. So I'm not sitting on extra Taikis, extra Taigurus, and extra Yus on kind of throughout the game. That's really the biggest philosophy when I was building this deck, because I knew that I was putting a lot of stuff into one deck. And it's actually something that I use to tackle for a lot of my green strategies in general, is just playing the correct amount of cards as opposed to playing the most amount of cards. So it's just something to think about. I think that it's been working very well for me. I haven't felt like I have bricked on finding any of these, or I'm like really, really digging for you to turn some combo on where I'm at 4 memory and then I'm able to OTK my opponent and blah, 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 or anything like that. I feel like I see all of these Tamers and I work with what I have, and I can build very powerful boards with that. So playing the correct amount of cards, I think, is actually a really, really good way to build these decks, and it's been working for me. So, all right, let's move on to the one of Yu. So this is another Yu. This Yu is really cool because when you're working with your level 4s that save an additional card, a lot of times you'll go through your turn, maybe you're hard playing a rookie, Digivolving for free, swinging, and this is now your Hammer Spark. You're going to get extra draws from it going throughout the game, and we play such a large purple package, it's actually incredibly easy to turn this on. So when you drop this Yu, it's actually really cool. If you go like Digivolve into a level 4 while this Yu is on board and this Yu has sources underneath it, the new Tamer that you played can just tap and grab the sources out from under this Yu, and it's like having an additional Tamer, or like playing a Tamer with a body underneath it. So Yu comes in, I would I was talking to some of my teammates about this card and about how much I like it, and I was saying that I actually think that U is a like staple and a namesay like in the deck. I think you have to play it as a one of, kind of like you play I guess like more so like you would play like a Gaia Force for red or cards like that, where it's just really, really important to like the general archetype. And even though this card isn't in the archetype necessarily, because this is an old U, I think that this card is like you have to play it because it's so good and it works so well. So talking about the rivals part of the engine, this is only 3 Tamers, but these 3 Tamers make a huge impact on the way that the deck works out. We'll talk about with the Iru. Iru is really good because this gives another minus 2k onto the board, and like we were talking about earlier, that's how you kind of can do some of your trades into War Greymon matchups. That's how you can get rid of some of the Rookie Rush style decks off the board, or even if you're playing the mirror match and your opponent has a Quartzmon on board and you're able to go into a Quartzmon and attack, but you don't want to trade and you don't have DP boost, minusing it by 2k is really nice. Or even if you have like an Omni Shoutmon and you can reduce down a Quartzmon down to 13, and then you can get up to 13, I think. Yeah, 13 with Omni Shouts removal is actually really, really sweet. So there's a couple ways to do it, but having this be the Tamer is nice because these are the other 2 inheritables are linked to attacking, and this card is just a start of turn effect that'll happen. Ryoma. Ryoma's probably, I've probably said this about so many cards about how it's the best card in the deck, but this card is one of the biggest combos in the deck and one of the biggest pieces in the mid game. So this Ryoma lets you grab a source from your trash and slot it under, and that's really important post dropping a level 5. If you drop a level 5 against your opponent and they're able to remove it, all the sources go away. So you're able to use Ryoma to fish out the important sources, as well as combo the Ryoma with some options that I play in the deck to kind of just create the game state that you need to go for game every single time. This is another card that I think that is crazy stapley for this archetype, and I think that you should just really, if you're not playing Ryoma, you should try it because it really comes in and fixes so many situations where you're like, oh, if I just had a superior mode, I won. If I had an Omni Shoutmon, I won. If I found my Asamon, I won. If I got a Quartzmon, I won. Ryoma just grabs those cards out of your trash and sets you up for a winning situation. For those. So that's one part of it. And then the second part of it, we do have all the options, but we're going to talk about overflowing power first. Overflowing power combos with Ryoma like crazy. So when I'm saying that you need a Quartzmon or whatever else, this is how you then Digivolve for it from underneath your Tamer. Sometimes you just need the cards for the inheritables, but this card is actually fantastic. Going into the mid game, if you have no cards in your hand and you top deck this, and you have, even if you don't have a Ryoma, but you just have a decent setup, right? You have a decent level 4 in raising, and you are under a Tamer, and you have something in raising. You just raise up from raising, and you go into this, and you're able to start, right? You're able to go someplace and get something going, and this is fantastic. This is a little bit better than playing kind of random level 4s, like filling out the rival side of the deck or filling out the hunter side of the deck, because this counts as both, and it counts as level 5s, and it counts as level 7s. This card is just really fantastic for bridging the gap and for just kind of getting you there in the end, which is something that if you've been playing rivals, you'll know that that's kind of that same, and kind of getting you there in the end is a big part of how you kind of go about the meta and kind of how your matchups go, right? It kind of comes down to that very end. Next up, we're gonna be talking about calling from the darkness, and huge shout out to my teammate James, because he's the one who put all of us onto calling from the darkness. I don't think anybody on the team was running this, and then we all saw how effective it was for him, and it's fantastic. When we're talking about kind of like a resource disparity, a lot of times what your opponent will try to do is dump a bunch of resource into getting your level 5s off the board so you can't do really good save plays and stuff. And this card just circles in and really gets you there. You can pick up like a Gumdramon or a Psychmon plus your level 4 Restramon and still go for game on that same turn if they put you at too much memory. Combos like that are just fantastic, but even grabbing like an Restramon in a superior mode, grabbing your Asamon out of trash. Just there's so many things that you grab out of trash that are important, but at the end of the day, just grabbing 2 rookies is fantastic, because if you can grab rookies out of the trash, Digivolve and raising, sometimes that just gets you to the amount of cards that you need to go in for game against your opponent. So that's going to wrap up the deck profile. This is really, this is really just my list. I really love this list a lot. I adore this deck. I think that it has really long legs and it can do a lot. A lot of the techie cards that you see in this list actually come in and are the identity that make this deck a bit different, and I think a bit better than a lot of other rivals and hunters decks. So if you guys have any comments, have any questions, drop them down below. You guys already know, but this is going to be Jamonster with Opus Gaming. I'm out. Take care, guys.